So when we look at the sales funnel and how best to manage your sales funnel going forward is to look at your sales funnel in these key buckets. The first bucket is targets. In other words, these are people who are out there that you may have met, may have not met, but you have the interest in finding out if there's any bit of interest in what you do. That could happen through a podcast strategy session. That could happen at a networking function. That could happen anywhere. That could just be buying a list. It doesn't really matter. These are the targets. And that's at the very lowest level of the relationship that somebody has with you. The next level is the lead level. This means that they've moved up that ladder and there's some level of identified interest. This means not necessarily they're in a buying cycle, that they've demonstrated that they're looking to make a decision. It's just that there's some degree of interest in what you're doing. It's now, the tables have turned a little bit. Before, they were a target for you. Now in this situation, you're a target for them in the sense that they're like, I'm kind of thinking about buying that stuff. I don't know what it is, but it sounds interesting. That's a lead. The goal of a lead is a goal for you with a lead is to convert that lead into a buying cycle, an opportunity. When you have an opportunity, this is where somebody has an identified interest, not only in buying, but making a decision to complete the cycle of closing that deal. A good idea of understanding that is them saying, I know when I'm going to make this purchasing. Like, next week, I'm going to make the decision to make this buy. Perfect. That right there hits the target. Another buying interest would be like if you knew exactly what their problem is and if you could quantify what that problem is. The next thing would be is if you could quantify that problem and quantify your solution and show that there's a high degree of return on that, that is key. So this is again going through the idea of number one, assessing, will they make a decision with anybody, you, competition, or anybody? Not just stay with the status quo, but they're actually going to make a decision to move forward with somebody. The second thing is it going to be with you? Are they going to make a decision with you to move forward with you? And what's the level of that happening? And then the last thing is when. If you could answer those questions, you now have a sales opportunity that you can work on. Now, salespeople can take something from a target to a close, sometimes in one call when it's not a complicated sales process. Sometimes when it's a little bit bigger and a little bit more complicated, it's going to take 2, 3, 4, 5 different times. Maybe even in some situations when I used to coach people who sold mass spectrometers, it was 2 years to sell something. You'd have to be with that person for 2 years to get that thing closed. That's tenacity. That's follow-up. But in that situation, you're not following up on a long-term lead or a lead. You're actually following up on a buying cycle. So if you know where you are and you know the correct buckets, and you can value the opportunities in each of those buckets, the leads in that bucket or the targets in that bucket, and to the degree of their level of interest, you can put a full value to your sales funnel. So say, for example, if a target is level 1, and if somebody's got your quote, they're ready to go over things, they're just doing the final decisions of making a decision, and say that's a level 8. If you have 5 level 8s, that's worth maybe 1 level 1, except when those level 8s disappear because you closed them all, now you only have your level 1s, which means you need a good stratification of level 1s, level 2s, level 5s, level 8s, level 9s, and level 10s, because then you have a healthy pipeline. Because then you can have a forecast for this month, and you can have a forecast for next month, and for the month after that, because you know there's a natural cycle to buying things. And if you can do that, that gets rid of the peaks and troughs when it comes to being able to create a good funnel that you can rely on, that is a consistent, reliable forecast. This all came from the Ardexus days. This came from Salesways. It was a book written by Thompson called Sales Automation Done Right, Selling in the Digital Age. So if you're interested in that, I highly suggest reading that book because it's a very good book on understanding the key elements of what makes up a sales opportunity and the taxonomy around selling when it comes to the science of selling. So look at your pipeline, break it under those categories of target, of lead, of opportunity. And if you do that, you're going to have more success in being able to manage your opportunity.